kids. Big day out. It's only a morning. I'm pleased some of you are on your sofas. We're going to give you a moment to make a cup of tea about halfway through. This is planning for Easter. It is absolutely amazing to see you. The broad plan, if you've not been with us before, is that a range of us will do some talking, not just me. And we have 3 breakout groups planned. Those breakout groups, you will be in the same group each time. So be honest in the first one, and by the third one, you'll be best friends. In fact, you are brothers and sisters. So be honest in the first one. It makes it much easier from then on. And we, in those breakout groups, you get to tell each other which ideas are rubbish, which ideas are good. The greatest value of this, I believe, is the breakout groups, where you share with one another your confusion, your enthusiasm, and your good ideas. And we're the filler that come in between that get in the way of those excellent breakout groups. Let me pray as people continue to come in. Let's pray for the Lord's blessing on our efforts. Father, you are good. You remain the very definition of good. You are love. All that you do is loving. We thank you, Father, that in your good purposes, this next couple of hours could be a blessing for us and glorifying to your Son's name. We do pray that, Father. We pray those of us who are speaking in front of a lot of people and those of us who are speaking in breakout groups, allow us to be honest, but allow us also, Father, to be uplifting and encouraging. Allow us to care for our brothers and sisters as we should. And may this, Father, ultimately help us, families, churches, to celebrate your Son's death and resurrection this Easter. Amen. Now, there is a handout that was emailed out, I think, to all of you, maybe to most of you, through the miracle of Zoom. That handout, some sort of link to it will be placed in the chat. You don't need the handout, but if you want it, so some people feel better if there's a piece of paper in your hand. And this is the story of the road to Emmaus. Can I just show you a few verses of this as we begin? Normally, this is the very best time we have together as we look at the Bible. I'm in Luke 24. I'm looking at the road to Emmaus, and I'm just going to skip through it. So if you start me, okay, so Luke 24:13. Now that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. And as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped he was the one who was going to redeem Israel." We had hoped. We had hoped. We had hoped that Jesus would be the one who would make our lives a little easier than this. We had hoped that Easter would have been a celebration. We had hoped that our churches would have been full. We had hoped that guests would have come in who we hadn't seen before. We had hoped that that we'd have had a hug by now. We'd have hoped that we had seen the person we miss so much by now. We had hoped. We had hoped. I look out my window, and I have some grandparents who live opposite. Last weekend, their son and his children were just standing in the road, and they were standing on their doorstep, and they were so happy. We'd hoped that grandchildren would be in their grandparents' homes. We'd hoped they would have gone for walks together. We'd hoped that they would have had big meals around Granny's table. Next door to me, Ian is a faithful Christian man. He's married to a woman who isn't a Christian. Ian and I have illicit Christian conversations over the fence at the end of the garden. Except we don't anymore because Ian has advanced dementia. And the ambulance was outside his home again yesterday. And if you tracked how often the ambulance came, it started out at about once every 3 months, and it's now about twice a week. We had hoped that Ian would be in glory by now. We had hoped. Perhaps this is a time more than any other when this Easter will remind us that we can hope. Perhaps more than any other time in our lives, this Easter will be when we can say to one another, we weren't wrong to hope. We are not wrong to hope. Let's go down to verse 30. When Jesus was at the table with them, he took bread, he gave thanks, he broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, perhaps read it aloud with me if you've got it in front of you. It is true. The Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon. It is true. The Lord has risen. I suspect we come to our computer screens this morning wishing we weren't coming to a computer screen this morning. Perhaps we're wishing Easter was sometime in mid-July. Perhaps we were wishing it wasn't us sitting at this computer screen, but we were sent here by a vicar or a PCC or someone else. Why is it I've got to do this? How did I end up being in charge? It is true. He has risen. It is not on you. It is not on your ability. It is not on your creativity. It is not on how many bags you can fill with chocolate this Easter. It is not on how many hours are in the day. It is not in how much energy you have. It is not on how many steps you can do each day. It is true. The Lord has risen. Our hope is not misplaced. We have a Lord who is risen and reigning on his throne. His church is in his hands. Every child is loved by him more than by their own parents. Every family is known to him, and he has a good plan to glorify his Son, exactly as we had hoped. So that means as we come together this morning, we have very modest goals. We want to leave saying to the first person we see, it is true, the Lord has risen. When someone says, what did you hear today? Was the big day out worth going to? The first thing you can say, it is true, and then very quickly say, the Lord has risen. It is true, the Lord has risen. That's the first thing to take away from our time together. The second is, we are going to try and be a bit calmer than we were in the Easter idea swap. That was deliberately manic. This is just going to take down the pace a little. This is going to be more about equipping, resourcing, and training. That takes a bit longer. So we're going to try and lay out some ideas. We've got some guests from other organizations. We're not totally Insula. So we're going to hear a range of ideas for how families and churches can celebrate Easter, how communities can be drawn in. This one, okay. These are our goals of the resources that we have written. You never quite know where to put the box. You don't need to put the box so you can read these. Firstly, we're trying to offer our church families hope this Easter. So we are realistic that a lot of families have drifted off of our radar, off of the church's radar, not off the Lord's radar. He has risen. It is true. So we're trying to say to those families who we haven't seen for too long, there's hope this Easter. We're not cross with you. We're not angry with you. We totally understand. You've not got something wrong. Please know hope this Easter. It is true, the Lord has risen. Secondly, we want our resources to welcome guests into our Easter hope. So our resources are focusing a bit more on the resurrection than they are the cross, because we think the hope of the resurrection is what we need to know in a climate of fear and death and illness. The resurrection is the answer to that. And perhaps this Easter, more than any other, is a chance for our guests to hear about our hope. Perhaps this is the Easter where they can hear, your hope is more secure than my hope. I'd quite like to have your hope too, please. So our resources, we're trying to deliberately wonder how we can put the hope of Easter into families who haven't known it before. And then finally, we are trying to be out the box. We are trying to say that we need some inspirational, flexible and plausible options this Easter. I was very interested to see that when we asked for a vote at the Easter swap of what you wanted us to offer, the least popular were an all-age, outdoor, sunrise Easter day service. You didn't want us to offer you a Good Friday in the park chaotic thing. In other words, these are things we think you already get. You don't need us to provide you that. I was hugely encouraged to read that. It's really good to be told, don't do that. We don't need it. So instead, we've tried to do the things you asked for, which we think are the more creative and the more out there. That's not to say you can't go back to what your church family might understand very well, which is we stand in the park on Good Friday if the laws of Scotland, Northern Ireland, England, Wales, and South Africa and some other nations who are joining us allow it. You don't need our help to do that. Stand in a park, open the Bible, sing if you're allowed, the Lord's name be glorified. I'm encouraged here, you don't need us to help you with that. The things we're offering you are that last category. Hopefully a bit inspirational, hopefully a bit creative, hopefully a bit innovative, but also that means less likely to work for everyone. Because they're out the box, there's going to be a heap of these ideas and you say, no, not for us. That's fine. If there was one idea you hear today that you think you can use, change, improve, share, that'd be great. We love it when we get the emails saying, we liked what you did. Are you okay if we do this instead? We reply, you don't need to ask us that. Change everything we offer. If you want to mention Faith in Kids at some point, that's a bonus, but make it yours. You know your community, you know your families better than we do, okay? So hopefully you can do this. We are pretty much there. You all know the chat function. You can just scribble in what you want to do there. And the wonder of Anita and YouTube is that Anita will edit those chat function stuff. So when you just say hello to Hannah, she'll probably delete that. But the stuff where she says, where you say, here's the thing where someone has done this before and why is Ed reinventing the wheel? That will be sent out to you afterwards. And also a video of this can be sent out afterwards on YouTube, on our channel. And people tell me they play it at double speed because that way it's less tedious. You can't play this at double speed. You've got to listen to this at normal speed, okay? So we're all clear. Chat, if you've got a handout, you see where we're going. That means I think that we can go to our first breakout group. Okay, this is your first one. You're going to be with these people, not for very long, but for long enough that you could be honest, tell them your name, tell them what's getting you down. I've given you 2 suggested questions. You could ask her, how far have you got with planning Easter? You can say, when is Easter? I don't know. That's an acceptable answer. How far have you got in planning Easter? First question. Second question, is there something you learnt at Christmas that helps you to plan Easter? Is there something that worked that's just made you think, I wonder if we could just take off the berries and the holly and stick on a cross and a rolling stone, and that works? By rolling stone, I don't mean Mick Jagger. You understand what I do mean. Okay, so what did you learn at Christmas that makes you want to do it differently? Or you can say, forget Ed's questions. We've got some much better ones, things we want to talk about. Okay, Anita, I'm going to do that thing where we try to feed back a little. Now, the main value of this is not just to hear what 111 people are thinking, but maybe you want to volunteer what other people said they learned from Christmas, because they'll never do it themselves. Okay, so either just put some stuff in the chat, or why, you know, if 5 brave people or 10 wanted just to shout out something that was happening in the breakout group, go on, do it, share something, share the most encouraging thing that was said. We'd love to hear your voices. Go.
The Zoom nativity worked really well at Christmas.
Thank you very much. We're going to be talking about that in the next 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Give us another one.
The Hunt the Stranger at Christmas. That was a really good idea. We really appreciated that.
Camilla, can you tell us what Hunt the Stranger is?
Okay, we asked 12 people from our church to dress as nativity characters, and we were going to have them stationed around the green outside our church for families to go and visit and ask them questions. However, we were concerned about bunching at the time, so we took photographs of them and we attached QR codes to each of the pictures. And we set up a trail around our village, so that, and we said to families they could go and do it any time between Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve.
Great. Thank you so much for being succinct and clear. That was brilliant, encouraging. Next, go on, someone else shout one out. This is going well.
And we found that relational stuff was really good for our kids. So even seeing people in the distance. So we did trails. We did the bake along, which was absolute mayhem in our house and in everyone else's house. But we enjoyed seeing everyone else enjoying that mayhem. And we even did a pancake party on Zoom just recently to kick off Easter. So that also was mayhem, but good for people to see each other, even if they can wave and say hi. We found that relational stuff was really important.
James Magic, what we take from you, James, is relational mayhem wins. Thank you very much. Perfect. Someone else, keep going. Let's keep the ball rolling. This is great.
Lots of
Amy, go. Amy, it's you.
For story trails, for bake-along projects, for anything that's getting people outdoors and doing stuff. But trying to give families confidence that they can read the Bible with their kids, and a bit of mess is fine. So agree with James.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Zoom pancakes worked well and built off the bake along idea. I just want to clarify no, I won't. I'm going to do that later. Next.
We had an outdoor service for families, for the whole church, and we lit up the church with fairy lights and things, and we had people who were driving by that just stopped and said, could they come in, which was so exciting. And we had kind of LED torches to put on your finger so that the kids could do a quiz and wave their torches around and interact. And it was short because it was cold, but that was probably our most successful thing.
Rain for darkness at Easter.
Yeah.
I love the idea of drive-by Christianity. It's a much warmer sound to it. That's great. Anyone else? Keep going.
I did the Advent blocks thing and recorded myself every day reading it out to them. And so in light of that, I ordered the Lent calendars and have posted them out to all my children so that each day they can follow through Lent. So it's actually a really special time, not just Easter weekend, but the whole period of Lent as well.
We need to stretch out our hope as far as we can, Lauren. Thank you very much. Last one or two.
We had a really good outdoor Christmas nativity, which was surprisingly successful in terms of numbers. And I was hoping for outdoor Easter thing from Faith in Kids. So I'm panicking a little, but then I've read the Zoom Easter script, which looks really funny, which has potential to be adapted outdoors.
Ah, you see, Nick, now look, you're living the Faith in Kids dream. You're mainly disappointed with us, but you notice there's something we've produced that you could possibly use in another way because you're the genius. Well done. That's exactly what we aim to be. Mostly disappointing, but offering some good ideas that you can make better so people say you are a hero. Well done. Perfect. One more feedback.
We did a nativity trail at Christmas time, and actually we put so much effort into decorated windows that they looked at, but what the children loved was little challenges at each house. So we might not be able to do it, but something simple like, can you tell me the name of one of the reindeer? Or, you know, kind of how many jumping jacks can you do in 20 seconds? The children absolutely loved it. Everything else, they didn't really care. So really simple challenges they loved.
Please hold on to that thought, Candy. We're going to be looking at windows of hope. I think that's really important, that the bar is set pretty low for what families are looking for. Get my kids outdoors doing star jumps on a pavement. Whoever thought that would be a thing? Perfect. Thanks so much. Keep that thought. Anyone else? I'm really reluctant to move on because I'm enjoying this a lot.
Someone in our group suggested, well, like with the actors thing going around, maybe they wouldn't be able to actually put actors outside, but they said you could film it and put that up on YouTube and then put a QR code around, and then you could like scan the QR code and watch the actor telling them about the Easter story, which I thought was a genius idea. Yeah, that was really good.
Thank you, Joe, very much. That's it, Joe. Tell us other people's great ideas because they never will. Anyone else got one? Stitch up your loving friends.
We did the Easter story, and I got a local carpenter just to cut out the shapes of the Easter characters. I stuck them around the village. I put fairy lights around them, and people just loved going around seeing the sheep and seeing the wise men on the top of the hill. And then I wrote a Bible verse so that they could read the Bible verses, and then I turned it into a quiz as well and see if they could put all the individual letters together to spell out the word Emmanuel. So
Mark, we all want your carpenter. Do you think you'll do this, Mark? Will you do this again at Easter? Do you think you will? You could take some photos of these characters.
I'm doing something different this Easter.
Oh, Mark, that's it. Get us all excited with your last idea. Mark, while we have you then, just tell us your exciting idea for this Easter.
I've got stations around the village with a board, and on it, it says it's the Easter whodunit. You've got to open up the box underneath. I'm going to make the waterproof boxes. In them are clues. So I've got a donkey head, a puppet donkey head. I've got a palm branch. I've got a crown. And your job is to guess what part of the Easter story it is. Then you lift the flap to find the answer, and I will give you a letter. And the letters will all add up to tell you where the Easter eggs are hidden.
Absolutely amazing. I'm glad I asked, Mark. How long would it have taken us to get that out of you if we hadn't asked? That does sound amazing, Mark. Thank you. Any others want to chip in? People are busily posting things in chat.
We did all of our stuff this Christmas was online, and which was not my decision, but that's what happened, most of it anyway. But one part of our service, we did a Kahoot style quiz. So we actually managed to get people to interact live on our live stream thing on YouTube, which was really exciting. So we retold part of the Christmas story by using questions, and then people could answer them. And then while they were answering them, we were filling in, and it was really fun because people felt they could actually engage in something online, which otherwise they were feeling quite out of, you know. So that was really positive for us. I didn't share that in my group. I'm just, you know, I didn't get there.
You're free. You're free. You don't have to apologise for not sharing it earlier. When you go back to your group, they'll say you've got to share more this time, Julianne, rather than just putting your good ideas out to everyone else. Perfect. Okay, we're now going to move on in a slight change of schedule. Paula, are you available for us?
I am.
Paula.
Yeah, hello. Hello.
Paula is a member of the Faith in Kids team, literally in Durban, South Africa. Paula, can you tell us about school assemblies?
Yes, I can. So word on the street is that school assemblies at the moment are PowerPoints that you get to click through in your own time. Or maybe it's a vicar holding a candle talking to you for 5 minutes. And I wonder how many of you think, yes, that's what I want to listen to and sit through for 5 minutes. It probably isn't. So no wonder our kids don't want to do that either. So what we have done is we've obviously thought, gosh, what really engages children? Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be food, hot cross buns, and Easter eggs. So we've put together an assembly, 10-minute assembly, really great short script for you to use, using familiar Easter treats. Let's do something fun. I think we all need a bit of fun. Most of all, we need hope. And in this assembly, you get to have fun, but you also get to tell them about life-saving hope. So I don't think you guys need to be convinced that it's a good idea to do an assembly. If you're struggling to get people to come to you, this is a way for you to go to them. You get to give them good news. You get to give them hope, real hope, not just hope that maybe restrictions will ease and you'll get to go on a summer holiday. You get to give them actual, incredible, certain hope, because we know that Jesus lives. So this assembly has been written for primary school age children. So some schools are going back. I mean, I am in South Africa at the moment, so it's very confusing. Schools are back here. I think schools are going back there. Who knows really what's happening, but also maybe it's going to be a long time until you can actually do an assembly like the good old days where everyone was together. So we've put together a script for doing an assembly that is recorded. So that is the best way for this to be done. But obviously, if by some miracle you can actually go into the schools, you could get together your team. Maybe you could spend a morning going around the different year groups, so everybody is still in their bubbles and distanced and all of those wonderful things. And you could do this assembly that uncovers the truth about Easter. So imagine kids walk into a shop and every time they see a hot cross bun, they think, gosh, Jesus died on a cross, because that's what they have learned from your Easter assembly that you have done for them. Every time they tuck into yet another chocolate Easter egg, they're like, oh my goodness, Jesus is alive. We can share this good news with them by using these familiar things. So it's got 4 characters. We've got a narrator, a detective. We have our 2 eyewitnesses, the Roman soldier and Peter, and they're the ones who help us to work out why do we eat these things at Easter as we share this good news with them. My top tip would be to be the role of the detective, because he's the one who has to eat all the hot cross buns. And my next top tip is you can actually get chocolate hot cross buns, because who actually wants to eat raisins? Don't know. So I guess maybe the big thing you would be thinking is, how do we do this? I feel like we're a year on in a pandemic, so obviously you're all like incredible video makers by now. If not, someone else is. Don't let tech be the thing that puts you off. You could do this as a Zoom meeting. The great thing about that is you get interaction between the characters. Most of this is relying on showing a few things, but some good kind of witty banter between your different characters. The joy of recording it on Zoom is that you also get to rehearse it a few times with the other characters. So choose a few people, record it together, find a really techie person in your church who can help you edit it. You could do this as one recording and then top and tail it with different personal things for different schools. So maybe in the past you were able to do 3 Easter assemblies at your local schools. This year, you can reach all of them. You can be in all of those places at once. So push those doors. If you've already got contacts with schools, get in contact with them again. Maybe it's been quite a while since you were doing a school assembly. I think it seems that the advice is go to the top, talk to the head teacher,
Phone the school, make an appointment, see if you can chat to the head teacher so that you can offer them this assembly. It's short, it's already done for them, it's fun. You can send this to them. They can be showing it to the people in their school, all of those kids. If you've been pushing doors with schools before and you haven't been able to get in and do an assembly, why not take this as another opportunity to contact them? And maybe they're desperate. Maybe they really do need something. They need assembly slots. Maybe this is something, a way that you could pursue connections with them. If you used to have kids clubs that were linked to those local schools, want to try and get those leaders involved. Let's show them faces that maybe they haven't seen in a while. Let's get those connections going again with those local schools in your area. So I think that covers most of it. Hot cross buns, Easter eggs, send you off on a high, make you all think, gosh, we really need to eat some of those. Go make your 10 minutes assembly, send it to all those local schools, share some fun and some good news with the children in your local area. This is all on our website. Download, simple scripts, easy to follow. You can all do this. Ed?
Thank you very much, Paula. You can eat your chocolate hot cross bun.
We are done. Ed, next person. No?
Okay. Yes. I think it's working, Paula. Don't panic. So the script that Paula has edited for this online lockdown assembly is available to download with the pack that is available today from the Faith in Kids website. There's also about 4 other Easter assemblies there. So if you're feeling more creative, you can go to one of those and just work out how to adapt it to make it into a video. Okay, perfect. Some of you have already mentioned the Zoom nativity. We have available a Zoom Easter. But before we think about that, I am going to show you a brief excerpt of the Zoom nativities we were sent by churches who did this. Oh, no, I've got to, sorry, I didn't share sound. Hopeless. Hang on. Oh, that's done it. Honestly. I'll be with you any more. There, share sound. Okay, optimize for video. Great, there, perfect. Try again.
You want to worship the King? I say, here he is. Come and worship him. Now sit down, kick back, have some KFC, all the rest of it. Yeah, it'd be wonderful, fantastic. And then they say to me, they saw a star in the east and they come to worship the King of the Jews. So they want to come and worship him as well. And he's saying how God showed up. God showed up. God showed up. God showed up.
Jeff, you're on mute. Doesn't matter. I'm pretty speechless myself. I'm just seeing something really amazing. There we were on the hillside, on there, telling scary stories. I was in the
Bethlehem to register. I'm taking Mary, who isn't technically my wife, but long story short, God showed up in a dream. I know it sounds weird, but this angel said it's all straight up. Mary's going to have a baby, and I'm to call him Jesus. Apparently it means God.
You're on mute because he's asleep, but he's perfect. I know everybody says that about their newborn baby, let's be honest. But he really is perfect. We called him Jesus, Mum. I know you wanted Zerubbabel, but, well, the angel said Jesus, so we went with that, sorry. He'll also be known as Emmanuel, which means God with us. Because, well, despite all my plans, despite all our plans, God really showed up.
We're privileged to be joined by Ben live from Wales, who featured in that incredible production. There was a couple of productions in there, but Ben organised a Zoom nativity for his church. So just as we're introducing the Zoom Easter, I'm sorry, my brain can't function with this jumping around. but we've written a Zoom Easter for you, and those backdrops you saw, we've made Easter versions available. So in other words, all that we did at Christmas, we've just repeated, but we've changed the story. I just thought I'd ask Ben about how it worked in his church doing the Zoom nativity. Ben, you talk now. Tell us, where are you? Where is your church?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So we're a small church based right in the middle of a housing estate in northeast Bristol. And at Christmas, we were really sort of battling with how are we going to reach our community remotely during Christmas. It's always one of the highlights of the year, being able to invite our family, our friends, and our neighborhood into church at Christmas. So yeah, the Zoom nativity was brilliant because it was really the highlight of our guest service. So we made a real effort to try and invite people to our church online during Christmas. And the Zoom nativity was our real sort of the highlight of our service. And it was from a sort of being able to invite family and friends perspective. It was great to say that, guys, look, we can't meet in person, but we're still doing a nativity and we're doing it on Zoom. We managed to get a little advertisement in the local Emerson's Green Voice, which is like our little local newspaper, and it had the sort of the YouTube link there. So that was fantastic. And I think from the guys in church, it really, in terms of inviting family, being able to say to them, you know, we're doing a short nativity online, and we followed it with a short sort of Christmas message, taking that theme of God with us. So it was a great way for us to really still engage with our friends, with our family, with our community during Christmas, and kind of invite them in. I suppose, church on YouTube is weird, but it was great to be able to, as like a little hook, guys, we're still doing a nativity. We'd love you to watch it. We had, I think the greatest thing in terms of the Zoom nativity was because it involved such a large proportion of the congregation. They were really involved in praying for the service, and it also made them a lot more proactive in inviting. So everyone who was involved was really engaged in inviting their family and friends. And we have some really encouraging stories of families that have never joined us at Christmas, all over the country, sort of families, non-Christian families from the church, who joined our Christmas service for the first time to see, you know, Gareth, who's our music leader, dressed as Caesar. He had a toga up in his attic. And even for my own family, which are spread out all across Wales, that don't know Jesus yet, they all joined the Zoom nativity service. So it was great to sort of have them. I suppose that's one of the highlights of church online. You get a far greater reach. In terms of putting the production together, I think the one big benefit for us was those Zoom backdrops, Ed, the Faith in Kids ones, because it gave a really good sort of consistency across the whole piece. Basically, there was like a 3-step process for me sort of pulling it all together. So first of all, I just asked a couple of people in the congregation if they're up for it. I sent them the script with a bit of a dummy's guide as to how to load up the Zoom backdrop in the background. And once everyone agreed they were up for it, we did one sort of dress rehearsal online. And that really was great fun, but I'd really encourage doing a dress rehearsal because it did uncover a couple of technical issues. So we had to help a couple of people out with, depending on your backdrop, your head kept disappearing if you didn't have a nice clear background and things like that. So definitely worthwhile doing. We did have, I think you saw there, so Emily, who's one of our youth leaders at the church who played Mary, her mum actually thought that she was pregnant. And so her mum watching that was crying with tears. We had to keep reassuring her that this was just a nativity script and that Emily wasn't actually with child. But yeah, it was great fun producing it. Everyone involved really loved it. And some really encouraging stories from families that joined us from across the country that have never been involved in our church service before. So yeah, I definitely really encourage it as a great opportunity to sort of reach your community during times like Christmas and Easter.
Ben, thank you so much. One question, Ben, for those of us who are fearful of tech, and maybe so far in lockdown we've managed to stay away from it. What was your solution to that part? There is some tech involved, isn't there?
Yeah, there was. So we've got a couple of guys in the church that have been helping us out with pulling it together. I think the big one was it was quite easy for people to record it on Zoom. So that was, in terms of those involved, as long as they've got access to Zoom, that they can record it quite easily. It's great if you've got one person in your church that can kind of just pull it all together and do the editing. I think there's some free softwares available to do that, but it was because the backdrops give that consistency, it was quite easy to stitch it together. Right. So I think as long as if God has blessed you with one technically savvy person in your church just to pull it all together, then the recording element is actually pretty straightforward on Zoom. I could probably share with you the dummies guide, Ed, that I sent out by email to the guys that did the recording, just a couple of screenshots.
If you can work out, Ben, a way of putting that in the chat in a way that's shareable and doesn't give us access to all of your family photos, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, sure, definitely, will do.
Thank you, Ben. If you have questions, Ben will hang around just maybe for 10 minutes or so. If you just want to type in any questions to him or Paula, that's the case with everyone who's here. They'd love to hear your questions in the chat. Ben, thank you so much for that. As Ben has explained, there's a set of backdrops that you can download, the script to download. We were very encouraged that the feedback we consistently heard from our Christmas resources, including this Zoom script, was we didn't need to edit it. We've tried to do our best to make it as short, as brief, as snappy, as funny as we can. And a BBC comedy writer has written this Zoom nativity, Zoom, I'm gonna stop doing this, Zoom Easter, just like, I'll stop. Great, you get it, download it, it's brilliant. Ben, you're a star, thank you very much. Rachel, are you online? Rachel Allord, are you online to talk a bit about the what an escape room is? Off you go, Rachel.
Yes, so I'm going to tell you about our escape room, Free Barabbas, but you might be wondering, first off, what is an escape room? So escape rooms are when you take your family or your team and you work to complete a series of challenges or puzzles or physical challenges to either escape a literal room, if you're doing it in person, or to an escape or reach a goal online if you're doing it virtually. They've really taken off in the online world during COVID. We've done, as families, we've done movies, we've done puzzles, we've done books, we've done board games, and an escape room is an alternative to those things that involves the entire family. So during this year, especially, online escape rooms have taken off, offering something that feels more like an event than just playing a board game that involves the whole family. So our escape room is called Free Barabbas. It's a fun, interactive online family adventure that will lead you to ponder the Easter story in a different way. And Ed's sharing some visuals. I think you can all see those. So if you go online and you see escape rooms, they all have kind of this little bit of a mystery look to them. Some of them are more PG-13 than others. Ours kind of has that same tone of mystery and intrigue with the black and white. It's a little bit modern, which I love. What Alex did made the story a little bit more modern. So our task, your task as your group, your family, would be to get to the jail to free Barabbas. And obviously, I probably don't have to go too far into the story to tell you that once you get there, what are you going to find? You're going to find an empty jail cell. So the challenges include physical challenges, but they're not difficult at all. Anyone could do them. Some of the challenges have to do with cracking a code or answering a question. This one on this screen is you have to flip the coin 5 times, or flip it until it lands on heads 5 times. So you have to run and get the coin, and then the challenge is to get heads 5 times. So the challenges are geared towards anywhere from about 8 to 12 years old. That being said, if you have a family with toddlers, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, they would love this. They would just kind of come alongside with the family and do it. I had our family here do it, my husband and our 16-year-old. And 16, if you have teenagers, you know that this wasn't on her top fun things to do with her family, but she actually smiled and we laughed, and it was just a fun interactive time. There's a lot of physical fetching things, grabbing things. It's told in the first person narrative. So as you're walking through each screen, as you can see, it's you reach a gate, you do this. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure tone to it as you walk through each challenge. Who is it for? It's definitely for church families who are looking for something to do other than games and books and movies. But it would be a great thing to invite non-church, non-Christian families to take part in. None of the questions have anything to do with Christianity. They're not going to test your theology. So it's very open to anyone who wants to just play this game and think about the Easter story at the end in a little bit of a different way. So how would you do this? So this will be available on the Faith in Kids site. It will be a free download. What you would do is set aside, I would say, about a half an hour to do the escape room. You could do it as your family unit, and it's all inside your house. You won't be leaving your house. You could do it with your family unit and another family on Zoom, where you could somehow work it out where you do it live together. You both have to complete the challenges. Or you could do it where you play it against a family and try to beat the time. The challenges themselves, that portion will probably have, or will have a 15-minute timer that we'll ask you to set. So the challenge part is about 15 minutes. If you don't make it in 15 minutes, you can obviously complete the challenges. The entire thing from the start to finish, I would say, would be no longer than a half an hour. What I like about this, the beginning of the story, you're set into the story, you're among the crowd, you're seeing the people shouting "Free Barabbas," and you're in the story right away. You accept the challenges, you go through the challenges, and then at the end, when the timed part is finished, so when families will click, okay, we did it in 13 minutes, hooray for us. The end portion really lends itself to talking about what you've just done, talking about the swap that Jesus made with Barabbas. Why did Barabbas get to go free and Jesus took his place? And just naturally leads into conversations of, what does that mean for us? How does Jesus take our place? How are we like Barabbas? How is sin like a prison? So the end part really is where it could go in a variety of different ways. So for Christian families who want to use this as a springboard to talk about the resurrection story from a different angle, it lends itself to do that. For families who are not Christian, not part of a church, it might be intriguing to just ponder these questions, but they certainly wouldn't have to spend much time on them. But since it's a story format, I think anybody who's partaking in the challenges, once they finish it, they're going to want to finish each slide and at least hear what the gospel is. So it could be used as a really effective tool just to invite neighbors and friends to partake in. And at the end, they're going to get the gospel in a very easy way that they can either choose to focus on and talk about, or they could just read it and be done. So it's a fun, interactive online family adventure. Will help you ponder Easter in a different way. And I believe it will be available this weekend. Is that right?
Thank you, Rachel. This resource is the only one that you'll be hearing about today that isn't yet ready to download. By the end of tomorrow, we hope this one will be with them. So you've seen the visuals, they won't change. It's just we haven't yet got them in a format that you can download. So that will be available to download in a PowerPoint format with all the other resources by the end of tomorrow. One question is coming in, would this work with a big group of families together at a certain time? Rachel, could you do that? 5 families on Zoom at a certain time and share the screen?
Yeah, I think you could do it whatever, it depends on your tech skills, I guess. If you can figure out a way to set up a Zoom call with 5 families, I think you could, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the same question is being asked about a group of 8 to 12-year-olds on a club. I think the answer is yes to all of those. So we think, as Rachel's explained, we think the core is about 8 to 12s and their parents. We think it could stretch a bit lower. We think it could stretch a bit higher. Thank you. We're going to move on. We've done 3 ideas. We've got a 4th one before you can have a brain rest in your breakout group and either listen to each other or join in the chat, okay? So the 4th idea, Amy is going to tell us about a weekend of wonder. Amy, unmute, let's go. Rachel, thank you.
Hello, so Weekend of Wonder is a booklet, short booklet we've put together to try and encourage families to be brave enough to open the Bible and enjoy having some Bible adventures over the Easter weekend. So I think what puts people off as a family being able to open the Bible together is that we're all going to sit around with a shirt and tie on and, you know, be very serious, and it's all going to be very hard, and we're not going to know what to do. And unless it's sort of been half an hour of, you know, deep and meaningful theological discussion, we got it wrong. So I think the surprise to families is that Bible time can be frying an egg while saying, so isn't this great? Read these few verses outside, answer these questions. We're done. Hooray. Good for you. So for those that have used our Wonder of Easter Family Bible Time or Meals with Jesus Family Bible Time, it's like that, only a lot more accessible, a lot shorter, and a lot more focused on the activities that you're going to do. So the feedback that we have from kids about family Bible times is what they remember is the thing. What is the thing that we did? So the cushions that we held, the water that we poured, the pasta shells that we picked up. So we've tried to gear this around giving a family something to do. So a meal with Jesus, a walk. It looks like this. You print it out. We've got, oh, my internet connection is unstable. I hope you can still hear me. We've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday there. There's an extra thing for you to print out, to a little activity for them to do. So for those of you who are desperate to do another gift with a chocolate egg, and you get, if you want to go all out, you give them a stick, a piece of wool, and I think that's probably about it. But it'd be great if they could find them themselves, and then they're all set to go and have their very own Bible adventure over the weekend. There we go. So you print that out, you're done. You deliver it, go.
Amy, last when we did the Easter idea swap, we had a bunch of people saying they have been delivering hundreds of bags to the doorsteps of families. Everything you need for a weekend of adventure. This is our idea for what could go into such a bag, Christians or not. It's light, it's easy. What if you were doing it, Amy? What else would you be putting in the bag that you drop off at a family's doorstep with this resource?
Well, if I was going to go all out high level, the Friday meal is making pita bread pizzas. So I would put some pita breads and a bit of tomato puree, not a dollop, obviously a little squeezy thing, and maybe some grated cheese. On a Saturday is a walk with Jesus where you make a journey stick, and there's a luggage label that we've handled. So if I might make a better version of those out of cardboard for them to write their name on, if I so desired. I might give them some lovely piece of wool. And the Sunday is a little Easter egg hunt. So I just put some chocolate eggs in. Am I going crackly, Ed?
No, sorry, I said oh crumbs, I'm sorry, because brilliant Erica has just shared that in Scotland, they're not allowed to deliver goodie bags. And Scott.
It's okay, we've planned for that, Ed. We've planned for that.
You've planned for that?
We've planned for that, because what you can do is you can then, this is a PDF, so you email it to the families and they print it out and you say, we're praying for you. There you go.
Amy, thank you for that. My brothers and sisters in Scotland, thanks for telling us. Thank you for being creative. And Amy, thank you for having a quick answer. Thank you. We're just about to go to breakout groups. A question has just come in. Could the escape room idea work for a youth group? The answer is you know your youth group, download the resource, read it through. You can make it more complicated very quickly. You could even say, I'm sorry, you know what Faith in Kids are like, it's all too young, but don't worry, I've made it harder for you. That is all part of the fun. I'm sure you can make it work, but more importantly, you know your own youth group. You can do that. I think it's time to go. Amy, thank you for telling us about the Weekend of Wonder. Everyone now can take a deep breath. You're about to go to your, about to go to your breakout groups. 4 ideas. We have heard about the school assembly to record. We've heard about a Zoom Easter production. We've heard about an escape room, and we've heard about the Weekend of Wonder. I guess the obvious question is, does one of those feel possible for your church? How could you make it better? Or go and get a cup of tea and this man will stop talking. Anita, please hyperdrive us to a break. We're going to have a break any moment, okay? So I thought we'd just hear from your small group before taking a 5-minute break, okay? If you've already taken a break, no one's in trouble. We're not keeping a register. And I'm going to ask that inevitable question now, which is, how did the breakout group go? So the last time it went jolly well when I asked that, so I feel emboldened. So for 5 minutes, we're just going to have a quick sweep of how that breakout group go, and then I'm going to give you formal permission to take a break for 5 minutes. So before I allow anyone to leave, can we just a few of you just unmute, and what was said that's particularly striking, what is particularly helpful? It doesn't have to be helpful. That set the bar quite high. Unmute yourself. Off you go. What was said in that breakout group that you'd love to share?
I really love the fact that the Weekend of Wonder booklet doesn't have to be technological, because my demographic is that they wouldn't access a Zoom call. I don't have contact with them in that way. So to actually have something physical that you can post out, and that whether they do it or not is another matter, but the fact that you can send it out there and give them the option to partake in something is really great. I love physical stuff anyway.
Thank you so much, Lauren. If you put chocolate Easter eggs and a homemade brownie wrapped up in cling film, they'll open anything you give them. Thank you very much, Lauren, for sharing that. That's hugely helpful. Someone else, unmute, tell us your story.
Several people in my group had done the bake along at Christmas, and we seemed to think that people liked doing something practical. For us, it was the best thing for non-Christian families. We didn't get many non-Christian families along to other things. So yeah, thought that worked well. We were going to try and rerun that for Easter.
Fiona, thank you. We're definitely coming to the bake along in this next segment. We'll talk a bit about that. Thank you. Anyone else?
We were excited, Ed, about how easy it would be to offer things like the escape room to schools, via a parent. So even if we don't have contact with the school ourselves, a parent could sort of mail it to the school and say, what about this? And apparently schools are really keen to get resources.
Brilliant. Peter, thank you. And I know it's a brilliant suggestion. And I know the people who are thinking of this, you'll also just think the next step, which is if freeing Barabbas is a fairly, left field way to approach this story, just give them a few pages of a beginner's Bible or an International Children's Bible, just to, why don't you read this bit to the children afterwards? Can they spot which bit was in the Bible and which wasn't? Give them 3 simple questions to talk about. Teachers will always love hearing those sorts of easy to follow resources. Peter, thank you for sharing that. Perfect. Anyone else just want to unmute? Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us what you're talking about.
It's not something that we talked about in the group, but just an idea that I've just had now, as a parent on several different WhatsApp groups of the school, that the escape room could be shared as parents with the families in our schools, to say, this is an idea. So not going via the school, but just in your own, class WhatsApp group, to share as an evangelical tool, and we can encourage our families to do that as well, the people in their sort of WhatsApp groups.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tori. Creative thinking, working it through for your context is key. Thank you. Anyone else want to unmute? Just tell us what you're thinking, what you discussed.
A lovely lady in our group suggested that for the escape room, she might get all her families at church to start it at a set time, and then they have to race against each other. So they're all doing it by themselves at home. But when they finished it, they text her and she sends them a Zoom link and they join the Zoom call. So one by one, they join her Zoom call and then they can see who was first, who was second as they join. And then they're all together at the end so they can discuss what they've learned. I thought that was a great idea.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thank you. And particularly if on that Zoom call, you just had 1 or 2 questions ready, because in the mania of rushing through, to take a moment then just to work out what was the best challenge you did, which was the most exciting. How is sin a bit like being in a prison? Thank you very much, Katie. Perfect. We've just had some questions in and I'm going to read them out even though I don't know all the answers. The points are helpfully being made in the chat that in England, Easter weekend will be the first one where 2 households can meet. And then someone else is, Mark is asking me what my understanding of the laws are and how this will work at Easter. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to those questions. And I didn't start to know because I knew how long it would take me to fathom it. But if someone wants to say for your country, what your understanding of the rules is and how this will affect these sorts of ideas, that would be really welcome, knowing that you won't be taken to court if you get it slightly wrong. Does anyone else want to unmute and share what they're thinking, share their insight? We're doing very well. Just a couple more ideas and we'll move on.
And as far as I can tell,
this best dodge.
Oh, hang on. Fiona first, then Amy. Go, Fiona.
I was going to say, as far as I can tell, it's definitely right that you can't run Sunday school before 12th of April. So
Okay.
that seems clear. That's all I've got.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Amy?
I'm just laughing at you for the world's best dodge.
Oh, come on.
I'm just...
Hang on, don't highlight that. We want to move on very quickly. Anyone else want to unmute before Amy can talk anymore? No, thanks, Amy. That's a very helpful place to finish then. So now we're moving on. We're taking a break, a 4-minute break. On my clock, it says 11:19. That doesn't really count as a break, does it? You can actually just stand up and sit back down again. But I think that's what we've learned people would rather do. So sorry if you're wondering why that wasn't a real break. Welcome back. We've done very well. We are about to hear 4 more ideas. These are the last 4 ideas. So you've done very well. I hope you are writing down a limited number of next steps. I think if you leave here with more than 2 or 3, that seems like a tough ask. We're about to turn to Victoria Beach, who comes from Godventure. Victoria, do you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself and tell us what we can be doing this Easter?
Yes, I can. There we are. Hello, I'm Victoria from Godventure. I always have like a list as long as my arm of things that I'd like to do with my family. So my challenge is always to try and find things that are the right thing for us to do this year. And in our group, we were chatting about how at Christmas, some of us maybe overstretched ourselves and tried to do too many things. And that at the moment, April sounds like Easter's a long way off, but it's only about 4 weeks away. And to get stuff prepared, we need to be, as Ed said, we need to choose one thing. So I'm all about trying to inspire parents and families to do stuff together. And one of the ways to do that, I think, is for us to model it ourselves. So while you're planning, and this is all very much about planning what we're going to give to other people to do, let's not forget to plan something that we're going to do in our homes and with our families, no matter how old your family or your children are. In our family, one of the things my children are currently asking to do, which we've done a few times, is to make Easter eggs using an Easter egg mold. So you can either do that with like an old Easter egg, like I say old, they're already in the shops, aren't they? So you can already have bought and eaten an Easter egg already, can't you? So you get that one, and then you just layer chocolate, melted chocolate onto it. You do 2 sides, and then you do this really clever thing where you melt it on a baking tray. So you put a baking tray in the oven, you get the baking tray out when it's hot, and then you hold the sides on your baking tray for about 3 seconds, and then you quickly put them together, and it acts like glue. It's amazing. It's really, really cool. And what we do is we fill those eggs with Easter story related sweets. Now that's easier to do when you can go out to a shop, but for my kids, the fun thing is to go out to the shop. You know, those shops where they have loads and loads of sweets, and they will spend an hour in the shop looking at all the different jars of sweets and deciding the 10 sweets that they're going to choose and how they relate to the Easter story. So they have to relate in some way. So they get really creative about it, you know, so like you can get those jelly snakes, and that's about the snake in the Garden of Eden, and you can get a bottle of wine because that's for the Last Supper. Also, so that's like cola bottles is like the Last Supper and things. So, but what we do is we put those sweets inside and then we glue them together. And then that's one of many Easter eggs. That's quite a big thing to do. So I wouldn't recommend that as a thing that you suggest to other people to do. But I find that just sharing the thing that I do inspires other people to find their thing, if that makes sense, because your thing might not be making stuff in the kitchen. My kids are happy to spend hours in the kitchen doing that, so that's what we do. But for most families, but for each family, it'll be a different thing, won't it? A different thing like that. Something I think it'd be great, and we've touched on this in actually most of the ideas that we've talked about so far, is to inspire families to actually read the Easter story, particularly those families that are in our church family, but even those that aren't. But I think probably picking up a Bible and reading it from the Bible for many people is a big ask, and it feels like it's a bigger task than it is. Now I'm really passionate about people listening to the Bible. So with our family, if we're going to do a big chunk of the Bible, like the Easter story, so I don't know if you've tried doing this, but you can just listen to it on Bible Gateway, and you can download it on your phone, and you can switch it on. And my favorite is the NIV read by Hercule Poirot, who is actually David Suchet, who's a Christian, and he's read it on. He's just got a lovely voice that's like eating chocolate. And you can listen to the whole Easter story from one gospel in less than an hour. Did you know that? Less than an hour. And actually, if you pick the shortest gospel, it's only 34 minutes, which is really not very long at all. And so if you put out some things to eat and some things to play with, like Lego or some Play-Doh or some things that you do with your hands, you could easily sit around as a family for 34 minutes and listen to the whole of the story. And then you've got something to kind of play with to sort of say, so how could we retell that? And just doing it once at some point in the run up to Easter gives you lots of kind of meaningful questions that you can have. When my kids were little, we made things like this. I'm currently in the process of having these made. I think in the next 2 weeks, these will be available to buy as puppets. They're Easter story puppets. They're just pictures from the Easter story. I'm holding this in the wrong place. Stuck onto a paper straw. Okay, so it's really, really simple. But for us, having the pictures meant that we could everybody could take part in the retelling of the story. So having listened to it once, we could all say, oh, I want to do the bit with Jesus on the donkey. I want to hold this one. Oh, I know, I want to do the bit where Jesus does the wine, and I want to hold this one. And then you can retell the story together. So each of you can take it in turns. Whoever's holding the puppet of that bit of the story gets to say what happens. So, the person holding this one gets to say what the crowd said and what the crowd did. And the one holding Jesus and the bread gets to say what Jesus did with the bread. So I've made a set of these previously for my family by cutting up a book. Now I'm a publisher and I give you permission, full permission. If you've got 2 copies of an Easter book, chop one of them up, cut out the pictures, make them into puppets, and then you can read the story from one of your copies and you can tell the story, or you can have other people telling the story with the visuals from the other bit of yours. If you're looking for these standalone, as I say, you can they will be available on the God Venture website in a week or so. My next door neighbour's daughter is currently colouring them in for us next door, which is fabulous. Great for lockdown, isn't it? The conversations you have in lockdown. Oh, your daughter's an artist. How interesting. Would you like to draw some pictures of Easter? So she is, which is great. So the other thing I would suggest to do is to do it about food. We've talked about quite a few food ideas. My favourite one is always sweets prayer. We do this with mini eggs, and basically mini eggs come in 4 colours,
And so you just choose 4 different types of prayer that you can do. And if you're wanting to do this and you're wanting to try and inspire families to do this on their own, the easiest way to do this is to do it with them. Yeah. So if I want you to share in something that I do in my house, it's easier for me to say, come and see what we do, come and join in. And obviously we can't do that physically at the moment, but if you're doing a Zoom event and you're wanting to start and end in prayer, why not make one of the prayers a sweets prayer and get out some sweets for everybody so everybody can do that. Most people, if you warn people a week in advance, most people will be able to grab a pack of mini eggs from the garage at the end of the road and then just do it together as a gathered church prayer. And then it means that, like somebody was saying earlier, I can't remember who was saying, every time you say it was Paul, every time you see a hot cross bun, you'll think about Jesus and the cross. So if you take something that people are going to be eating a lot of anyway in the next 5 weeks, and you attach it to something that's spiritual, something that you can do that helps people to connect with God, they may not pray next time they eat mini eggs, but they will remember that they did pray when they ate mini eggs. And it also means that it doesn't necessarily have to be the parents that introduce the activity, because children will quite happily suggest doing prayer with sweets. They will lead that activity and make sure that the family repeats that activity at some point. So there's a whole selection of ideas. Is that enough for you there, Ed?
It's great, Victoria. Thank you, Victoria. Just tell us, your website is godventure.co.uk. And then we can find those things there.
If you're wanting that, I'll just pop a link in the chat. So I think inspiring people that they could actually listen to the whole of the Easter story is a really simple thing to do for church families particularly. And that link I've put in there takes you to a webpage where I've put a link through to Bible Gateway and said how long each of them is, so families could pick which one that they choose. So, you know, inspire families to get, you know, click it on their phone, stick it on the iPad, pop it on the telly, and open up some chocolate and listen.
To Hercule Poirot, but don't tell your children that, because that will be weird. But great, I'm totally with you. And people are telling us that he also does a Jesus Storybook Bible, but I'd be amazed if there's one person on this call who hasn't listened to the Jesus Storybook Bible with Hercule Poirot. It's perfect. Victoria, thank you very much. Victoria, you're going to hang around for 10 minutes. If people have questions, I can put in the chat. You can type in the answers. Perfect. I'm just going to talk for 1 minute about podcasts. That is because I don't think you can be around Faith in Kids long without having seen us wave around Meals with Jesus, which is our new book that follows from the wonder of Easter. And I'm delighted that whole churches are having a go with these. And there's some downloadable church resources. And also, starting in the next few weeks or so, will be some Faith in Kids podcasts. So for those who first of all don't understand what a podcast is, think of it like a radio show that's available at any time. You can find details on the Faith in Kids website. So we have 2 types of podcast. One is for the whole family. That's what we call podcasts for kids, or Faith in Kids for kids. You'll find it if you just type in Faith in Kids. The second, and that's in the next week, we're going to start a series of 7, drawing from Meals with Jesus, going through 7 of the stories, 1 podcast each. They last about 15 minutes. The idea is when your family are locked in, when you're on a car journey, you press play, we do the Bible, we do some laughs, some facts, some questions. Then you get to the end and say, Ed gave us 4 questions. Should we run through those and pray? So we're going through 7. The first one is the first story from Meals with Jesus. And then Faith in, our second podcast is called Faith in Parents, but confusingly, you find it by going to Faith in Kids. So if you go to Faith in Kids podcast, you'll find 2 types there. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be putting out 2, which is talking to families about how they have been doing their Bible times. I think it's great to hear other families telling you that it's chaotic, they can't quite make it work, but they think it's still worthwhile persevering. So we're trying to tell their stories in the coming weeks. We're looking forward to both of those. Now, Catherine from Cornerstone Nottingham, would you unmute yourself, shout yes, then you'll pop up I can see you, Catherine.
I've shared a
Perfect.
screen. Have I shared a screen?
Perfect. You have shared a screen. Catherine, you're at Cornerstone Nottingham. You're going to tell us something of what you did at Christmas and something of what you're planning for Easter.
Yeah, first just say, Ed, thank you very much for all you do with your podcast and things. We are loving Meals with Jesus, so thank you. So at Christmas, we wanted to do something big and physical. We just really wanted to do something that wasn't virtual. So we wanted to do something joyful, and we persuaded our elders to let us turn our main auditorium into Narnia. So we had 6 stations. We had Mr. Tumnus, the Beavers, the Witch's Castle, Aslan, that kind of thing, as you kind of went round. And to keep it really COVID secure, you booked in advance for each household. You had a 10-minute kind of bookings were staggered so that people weren't all there all together. And it went nuts. So we had originally planned to run it from the 18th to the 24th of December, but had to extend it to the 28th because we just booked out so quickly, because people wanted to do something physical. They wanted to go somewhere. And we had so many people from other churches, but also lots and lots of non-Christians. And it was brilliant because it told the sweep of the gospel narrative. So, you know, creation, the world was great. Humans messed it up, but Jesus came and Jesus has redeemed it. And kids were given goodie bags as they went round, and there was a craft to do at each point that told part of the story and explained how it related to the gospel. Just to tell you a couple of encouragements from it. So I got a text from a mum whose son actually they go to a different church, but her son spent absolutely ages sitting at the stone table, which is where Aslan is. He's not crucified, but it's the equivalent of the crucifixion. And at that point, the children had in their bags pieces of soluble paper, and they wrote or drew something that they had done wrong on it, and then placed it in a big bowl of water and watched it disappear. And this family just spent about 20 minutes there, and because the boy just was writing and writing and writing. And afterwards, he said, I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you what I've done. But that was a sin that was weighing me down. This was like a 9-year-old. That was a sin that was weighing me down. And I know I've left it with Jesus now. So there were lots of things like that. Families who spent a very long time going around, praying at each kind of installation and talking through how it related to the gospel. We also, and this was an unexpected kind of consequence, but lots of adults came too. And one of the most glorious moments for me was an elderly lady who's been coming to our church for years and years and years, who stood at Cair Paravel, which is where the thrones are, where the 4 Pevensey children become kings and queens of Narnia. And she said, "Are you telling me I'm royal? Is that the point, that I am royal?" And I said, yes, that is the point. Those who follow Jesus were going to have crowns of righteousness. And she wept, because that was a truth she hadn't grasped before, but the visible, tangible kind of experience helped her to understand that biblical truth. So it worked really, really well for us. It booked really fast. We had more than 1,000 people come, and it was really worth doing. We filmed our carol service from inside it, because the Narnia narrative essentially follows the gospel narrative, and we did different parts of our carol service from different stations. Now that is, there you go. So that is Christmas, but we're talking about Easter. You could, if you wanted to do something physical for Easter, do the garden, the curtain and the cross as your story that becomes an interactive experience. We did it in 2018 and it was absolutely brilliant. We had different stations, and again, you walked around and there were crafts at different points, and you can do it in a really COVID secure way, because they get one bag on their way in, and that's what everything they need is in it. The glue stick, everything they need is in it, so they're not interacting with other people. I won't talk lots about the garden, the curtain and the cross now, but if you want to ask more about that, do, and I can send you resources or whatever. We're not actually going to do that this year, even though that was my number one thing that I really wanted to do. But we've decided that the grown-ups should have access to the main auditorium for some proper services at Easter, because we booted them all out for Christmas. So what we're going to do instead is the Saturday before Easter, again, because we think Easter weekend will be busy with families, is we're going to hold the great big family Easter extravaganza. And people are going to book in as household units. They'll have to book in advance. We're seeing this as a church family and as a kind of evangelistic thing. They'll go to a table in their household units, and then through a mixture of craft activities, which are going to be ready on the table, and challenges, and teaching from the front, we're going to talk them through the great big Easter story. So they're going to start with creation. They're going to have Play-Doh. They're going to make something. We're then going to mar whatever they make to talk about the fall. We're then going to go to Babel, and they're going to have a building competition in their families where they build things out of midget gems or marshmallows or something. Then we'll just kind of go through it. We've got a different activity at each point. Where we're going to end, and this is kind of resonates with what you're saying about hope this year, their final goodie bags that they're going to be open is a kind of party packet, and we're going to have glow sticks and party poppers, and we are going to celebrate that for those who follow Jesus, we go to be with him in glory, that there is hope now, but there is also hope for the future. And we're going to dim the lights. We're going to put a song on loud. We can't sing to it, but we're going to explode our party poppers, wave our glow sticks, and party that Jesus has come, Jesus has risen, and the future is secure, and there's good news. So again, I can tell you more. I can give you kind of an outline of what we're planning to do there. We're going to have to run it 3 times to fit as many people as we think will want to come to that. But by booking in advance, 1 household per table, we can maintain social distancing. And we're going to call it an act of worship, which is what we called the Narnia experience, because we think it fits within the government's definition of what an act of worship is. It's just a reflective act of worship.
Catherine, inevitably and wonderfully, people are very excited with lots of questions. One question, will this be indoors or outdoors, Catherine?
We're going to do it indoors, but I think you could do it outdoors. I think you could do either.
And are you willing to be brave, Catherine, and explain to us? I'm not even sure what the question is. You've looked into the regulations and you've understood that the weekend before Easter, this is possible. That's my question. Because
acts of worship are possible.
Great.
So this is going to be a service. We are saying it is a service. And we think we have a precedent of doing enough creative things in our services that it's not a myth to say that this is a service. And it will be. We will have upfront teaching. We will have prayer. We will have worship songs. Just there will be craft activities interwoven. So it's a service.
Great. Catherine, we're being asked the resources you're going to put together for the curtain cross garden, but not in that order. Great. The resources you're going to be, are they already available? I'm guessing they're not, Catherine, because you didn't come here ready-made.
No, because we did the garden and the curtain cross in 2018, so they are available.
Great. Are you able to put a shareable link in the chat for them?
I don't know if I'm clever enough to do that, Ed. I can try for the duration of this to see if I can remember how to do it.
Catherine, it's okay. If not, you can talk to someone like Anita about how to be clever. That'd be fine. Okay. Catherine, thank you so much. Just to, I know we have the good folk of St. George's, Glasgow here. So I hope they don't mind me just sharing these 2 pictures of their outdoor Christmas experience. So we haven't given you a separate script for the Easter experience because we think it's not difficult to go from the Zoom Easter to what an outdoor would look like with a character doing it. The encouragement I heard from them is that because it was in an outdoor space, because it's in this park that everyone could see, the vicar was telling me he overheard people saying, do you think they're all Christians? I thought Christians were older. So those sorts of things, hearing hymns, and he then went on to say, he thinks in the 5 years he's been there, this is the most popular thing, the greatest impact they've been able to have as a church. So Catherine is rightly saying, whatever we can do to allow people to experience, to see, to hear, but I'm not going to get too deluged in what that would look like, because it's hard to work that through, and you're cleverer than me. Thank you. We're now going to say something about the bake-along for this year while you put your questions in. The bake-along proved to be very popular, and what we are most excited about is that the 2 ways we proposed you could do a bake-along, you did. So firstly, you liked us doing the bake along so that your families could get involved. You liked us saying you can deliver the ingredients at someone's door with the time to tune in, you can get involved. People love that element of grace. A present, it's on the doorstep, you've made it possible. They also loved that we gave them a script so they could do the bake along in their church. And of course, we loved hearing, you know, we didn't use yours. We thought we could do it. We did do it. It was messy and our jumpers weren't as clean as yours, but it was brilliant. We loved that our vicar had a go and he got all messy and got confused. And, you know, that bringing together of different gifts to make it work, that's our main learning from the bake along. Is the main learning was that it takes two people to do it, someone who knows their way around a kitchen and someone who knows how to talk to children about the good news of Jesus Christ. We also understood that the benefit of you doing it instead of us is that people want to see your faces. People want to know there is someone within a mile of where they're sitting who is doing this for them. You can still deliver the ingredients to homes. So I just want to encourage you, first of all, I love that we've worked out because of Bake Along how to do a baker pancake along. That's what we hoped for. So you can do this yourself. You don't need us. We are still in a conversation with Martha, and we think we can offer our Bake Along on the 27th of March at 2 p.m. We've deliberately put it the weekend before Easter so that you can watch it. You can decide if this is something you want to share with the wider community. I hope we've built confidence that you know roughly how it's going to work. It's going to be us explaining Easter as briefly and as simply as we can, in between the wonderful Martha teaching us how to bake, all in that sort of 25-minute window. We're still talking to Martha. What Martha's taught me so far is we should avoid recipes that involve fridge products. So that rules out some brownie recipe that needs cream cheese that goes in a fridge. We should be looking for something that has just a couple of steps in the process so we can talk about the good news of Easter in between those steps. And we haven't yet come across a perfect illustration of the resurrection. So we've been talking to Martha about like a Swiss roll that we chop the end off and it rolls off, but that's too close to baking. And we want to make this simple enough that any family, even with a 4-year-old, could do it. If you want to put in the chat your idea of what you would like to see Martha make in our bake along that will help us explain the story of the resurrection in particular, we would love to hear from you. So what we are saying is we don't have the resources available now. We haven't even booked to film this, but we're going to tell you first our plan. If it works out and the Lord is kind, we will give you on the 27th our production, and we will do our best to make available to you before then a script so you can do it, because we would rather you did it than we did it. I hope that's clear. Amy's smiling at me, so I think she is, but she also smiles at me when she wants me to stop talking. If you have questions, you can do that. You can type them in while we ask. Well, look, the ideas are now flooding in. I will try to read those later. Okay, I'm not even going to read them out. I'm hoping someone cleverer than me will read them out and work that out. Nay Dawson, if you're there, could you unmute yourself and shout hello?
Hi, Ed.
Hello, Nay. Nay was with us at the Easter idea swap. Nay, could you just start just by telling us a bit about yourself? You're one of the guests for today. Where are you? How are you? How's it going?
Thanks, Ed. Hi, everyone. So I'm Nay, live down in Southampton, married to John, and we've got 2 little girls. And my day job is that I work with IFES Europe. So I work with Christian unions and students and raising up female evangelists. So that's me. My non-day job is being a mum and love reaching out to our community.
And Nay, you have particularly a desire to, all the things we've been talking about. People want contact, people want something to do. I'm not sure if you heard earlier, someone just saying they found to put a challenge outside a door of do star jumps on a pavement was wildly popular. You stumbled across, you've had a go at these trails. Can you just tell us how that started, what you did to get those trails going in your community?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So back in September, I was praying and asking God how we as a family could love our friends and share the gospel in a pandemic. I felt frustrated at the lockdown, and I felt God say to me, Nay, where do you think you shouldn't be? And I knew the answer was Halloween, because our area celebrates Halloween massively. So it's bigger than Christmas here. And so I tried to persuade a few friends to run a Halloween trail for me, except they really like the idea, but they just can't organize anything. So being a Christian and having never celebrated Halloween, I ended up running a Halloween trail for our community. And it was hugely popular. We decided as a family that we were going to be the house of lights on this trail. So bought the most incredible lights. We made these little gift bags with glow sticks and sweets, and wrote a little story, which was a kind of story that raises curiosity about the person of Jesus. And on the Halloween weekend, we gave out 500 of these bags just from our driveway. And friends stopped and wrote to me and said, Nay, thanks so much for bringing light into our community, for being such a presence of light. And really, it was that weekend, God really just showed us clearly that we are in lockdown. All we can do is hang out with our local community on our street. So let's make the most of that. So since then, we've run a nativity trail, we've run a fairy door trail, we ran Santa boxes at Christmas, and our latest one was a huge Lego trail that we ran over half term. So we've really enjoyed getting to know our community. We've done that through a Facebook page. And also as a Christian, I've tried to take as many opportunities to share the gospel as well.
Nay, thank you for that. Nay, we've got a resource to download in our pack, which we've called Windows of Hope, that you and I have done together. We're very grateful for your help with that. Can you just tell us, if we're making a start with this, if we're thinking for the first time this Easter, we could do a trail in our community, could you just give us what would be your first couple of steps, first couple of thoughts to just get that ball rolling?
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, I think people are desperate for community. They're so isolated and lonely. They've just had enough of this lockdown. I mean, I've totally had enough of this lockdown. Can't wait for March the 8th to come. And so I just encourage you, first of all, to love your community, even if you don't know them very well. And as you begin to reach out and do that, people are just so grateful. So one of the things that people said about the trail is they loved hearing families giggle outside their doorstep. So this Lego trail, we had 50 families on the trail. We had 200 people enter the competition. The Facebook page had a reach of nearly 9,000. People laughed loads. People said this is the reason for getting out each day in half term. So first of all, believe in it. This isn't just something we're doing to tick a box for Easter. This is an amazing message of hope that God's given us through our community. So I would say just begin to pray for your community and to begin to love them. And what I love doing is getting other people involved. So if you've got an idea for Easter, just put on your Facebook page, does anybody want to help me, and get involved. And the first time I did that, I had 40 people respond to say they'd like to support me in some way. So all I do is project manage people and they do the work for me. So I'd say, you know, we're all exhausted. Don't take it on yourself, but gather a few Christians, gather a few friends from school and get them involved with whatever your crazy idea is. But genuinely see that this is God calling you to be a home of hope in your street, because then God can use us powerfully.
Thank you. Nay, while I just share the resource on the screen, could you just tell us something? The thing that strikes me most clearly about your story and others is when we hear that this isn't just Christians who want to do the trail. It's the friends who aren't Christians who are thanking you for doing it. For those of us for whom lockdown has actually maybe made us more defensive than we would otherwise be, do you just have a word for us about how we might think about it, approach it, if we want to make this not just a church trail?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was God in his kindness. You know, I never would have run a Halloween trail in a million years. But I think listening to God and praying and asking him for what to do. Sorry, Ed, do you mind asking that question again?
Yes, Nay, if we're nervous about involving our whole community,
yeah,
how do we make a start with that so it's not just a church trail?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I went for coffee with two friends who I knew would be up for listening to my crazy ideas. And both of them weren't Christians. So start with your non-Christian friends and just invite them for coffee online or walk in person if you can. And just say, look, I've got this idea. Everyone's feeling a bit tired and fed up. What do you think about us offering some hope at Easter? Now, no one's going to say no to that. You're not saying you've also got to believe in the gospel message. But I think just genuinely inviting friends to be part of what you're doing, or just getting in touch with some really good friends saying, do you have ideas of how we can bring a sense of community, a sense of hope over the Easter holidays when there's going to be nothing happening, everything's going to be shut still. And I find the best ideas are often the ideas that other people have. Like the Lego trail wasn't my idea. I helped project manage it. But the more you do that, people then notice you as the person to go to if they've got an idea, and then you can just make it happen. So like the local libraries got in touch, they want to run a World Book Day trail. And I said, well, let's do it in partnership. I'm doing nothing, just promoting them. But this is another group of people that will get involved, promote, share for us. So start with a friend, just one friend who thinks you're great and your ideas are great too, and go with that.
Nay, thank you. At the bottom of this resource, you'll see that we've put a dozen key elements of the Easter story. We've tried, you see on the left-hand side, bread and wine, the cross, the torn curtain. We're imagining that might be the beginning of an idea for what people want to put in their garden. And Nay's point about people are more creative than we can imagine. So rather than giving them, there are many Easter trails available. Scripture Union are doing them. We've listed some on here. They are very good. What we have tried to do is imagine people might take an idea and run with it. So for instance, if you give them the torn curtain, what will they put in their garden? And we've deliberately tried to make these so that with one or two exceptions, you could imagine giving these to friends who aren't Christians and saying, here is an idea, here is a verse from the Bible, and here is a simple idea. Can you make that garden there? We've highlighted the ones that we think are essential, and you could even handpick which ones you might give to friends who aren't Christians. Or as Nay is saying, even more free form, you just get people involved and you just get people to think wildly and have fun with it. Okay. I see that the chat is filling up with ideas and thoughts. Nay, are you looking at the chat? Are there any questions that have come in there that you want to answer?
Yeah, I mean, Amy, thanks for your comments. I think, like, as we've been thinking about Easter, the big question is, what on earth do you do? It feels like a bit of an unknown, somber message. Ed and I have chatted loads about this. Actually focusing on the resurrection and this new hope and new life is an amazing thing that people would like to do. But also where I think we've landed is we're going to do a huge geocaching Easter egg trail that loads of people can get involved in, probably 50, 60 families, houses get involved in. But me and a load of Christian friends are making these beautiful gift bags, sorry Scotland, that we will then give as a prize. And it will also include the trail map, and the local schools agreed to give that out. And we've said clearly this is a gift from the churches to you. So it's an educational tool for the school, isn't it? So yeah, Amy, I think you're right about that. I don't know if there's any more questions.
They're just, no, they're getting, the comments are just excitement. They're just thrilled. And people are telling their stories like Naomi, our trails around the community. The map was put on social media. I think this is what I love most about what you're saying, Nay, is wouldn't it be amazing if it's the Christians who are famous and known for drawing the community together?
Yeah, 100%. So like when we did the nativity one, again, we had 24 days. Most families weren't Christians. And in the chats, we do a Facebook Messenger group chat. In the chat, Vanessa from across the road was like, hang on, I wanted the sheep, but I've got, or the shepherds, but I've got glory. What does glory mean? What the F does glory mean? In our chat. So then the few Christians are like, okay, this is what glory means. It's like we're having an evangelistic conversation just in the prep the month before. Then she comes to my house to say, Nay, I just think you need to know I'm an atheist. I'm on your nativity trail. Is that okay? I'm like, of course that's okay. Tell me about why you're an atheist. So we had this hour-long chat outside our house. So I think if you want to get to know your area, and somebody commented on it earlier, don't just do the Christmas and Easter, get invested in what your area loves. So we've run like nominate a neighbour scheme for bringing light and life into your life. We've run a gift bag scheme for NHS staff. And I was recently interviewed by BBC Radio, and they listed all the stuff I've done, which is a bit embarrassing because it's a group affair, it's not just me. And then she said, why do you do what you do? This is live radio. And I said, well, I grew up a single parent family and the church showed me what love really is. I simply want to do the same. And she was speechless. She didn't know what to say. And I found that as you really give out, you love dearly with the whole of your life, people will begin to say, oh, why'd you do that? Or is it okay that I'm an atheist? You know, so I think love dearly over Easter, that would be a great message for your community to know. And people will ask questions.
Nay, selfishly, I could just ask you questions for the rest of the day. And I suspect everyone else here would quite like that. But we're going to hear a bit more from you in a minute. I'm sorry, we're stopping right now. We're now going to go to breakout groups for the final time. And we have talked about too much. Victoria has given us ideas about prayer together, about telling the story together, about listening to the Bible. We've heard about some podcasts. We've heard about Catherine's adventures in Nottingham. And we have heard about the potential for a bake-along. And we've heard about Nay's Windows of Hope. Home is called something else. Why don't we go to the last 8 minutes? I think the key question here that we could perhaps consider is, what's the one idea we want to take away? What is the one next step? Who might we involve next? Nay's point, it's not about her. She's the project manager. I suspect that's how you have ended up in this call now, is you've been asked to come here because you're a project manager. At least I hope that's how you're thinking of yourself. You are not the person to be the Messiah for your church and families. Anita, please hyperdrive us. Coming back in. It's amazing. So many of you are here. I really hope this has been encouraging, and I hope that was encouraging. Let's do the same again, knowing we're almost there. But we would love to hear from one another. Could you just unmute yourself and just share thoughts? They don't have to be upbeat. So if someone was just honest with you in your breakout group about the difficulty they're feeling, you're allowed to share that. I suspect it's totally widespread. So anyone want to just unmute or just share something they found very helpful?
Ed, I was just going to say we felt quite overwhelmed, like positively overwhelmed, but I think now to try and sift through, so what actually am I going to do, and what steps should I take next, and how do I decide what is best for my community? Who do I get involved to help me with this? So I think we ended with praying. We ran out of time, but I think that's a helpful next step, isn't it?
Yes, it must be. Thank you, Amy. I suspect an obvious next step is to sit down on your own, and then maybe just to pick up telephone to a friend who you trust in your church to say, my brain is addled, I've got too many good ideas, can I run them past you? And then pray. None of you need me to help you with that. Someone unmute yourself and off you go.
Ed, we want to get our church families praying so we can plan and do brilliant things, but we want the Lord Jesus to work in our communities. So getting the prayer warriors, the prayer meetings, getting on people's agendas, making it not just that we're involved, but the whole church.
Nick, thank you. Thank you. Has our church ever prayed like this before? I'm not saying we haven't. I'm merely saying, wouldn't that be an amazing outcome of this Easter? If we as a church thought there's a huge opportunity, let's pray. Thank you, Nick, very much. Thank you. Anita is just answering the question about the bake-along. whatever we produce, it will absolutely be available afterwards. we will leave it up there. I love that I'm still receiving pictures of people who are still making gingerbread people. Anyone else want to unmute and share what was said?
Yeah, something that a couple of us talked about, Ed, is that we're all quite tired, and after Christmas, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. Some of us had really discouraging experiences where the changes in the law just destroyed our Christmas plans. For me, I'm thinking we had a great bake-along. The church families loved it. We had more friends along, I think, than we've ever had to an event. It was wonderful. And we're just going to do it again, because I don't think we've got the energy for a risky failure, to be honest. And we think that'll work. I know the church families will love it, which means it'll do gospel good for us. And I would be amazed if we didn't get the same 15 or so other families back, because we had such good feedback. So we're just thinking, actually, just do one thing well that we're fairly confident about, and then preach the resurrection loud.
John, having you here, we actually have the author of the book on not biting off more than we can chew in service of the Lord. I recommend Serving Without Sinking to everyone. John, give us 2 more sentences for what we do with the feeling that we're saying we have, which is we would love to serve more. We feel overwhelmed and low on energy. Give us 2 more sentences, John.
Our God wants us to serve as his sons and daughters, not his employees. I think that's the thing that changes it. He loves us. Christ bought us. He loves us as a bride. But our Father, those of us who are parents, or those of us who've had good parents, our Father wants the service of children who love him, not we don't need to, we're not going to have an appraisal. Christ had that. We're going to have just a wonderful banquet where he will smile and thank us for our service, even though we delighted to give it.
I'm pleased I asked you, John. Thank you very much. This seems like the right moment to ask Nay to unmute herself. We've just asked Nay to try to round off our time together. After Nay, there'll just be a couple of minutes of final thoughts, but we're very close. Nay, can you just unmute yourself and take us on?
Thanks, Ed. So as we approach Easter and, listen to all these incredible ideas, and in the light of what John just said, as sons and daughters, I think it's really worth reminding ourselves that Easter means hope. It's easy to approach Easter and just think we're exhausted. It's a somber message. How are we going to communicate that? And yet, I'd just like to really encourage us that God is at work in our communities. And I totally agree with John. Go for something that is not going to get changed by COVID plans, which is why I love the trails, because you can do them on your daily exercise. But I really want to encourage you that God is at work, even in our tiredness and weakness and frustration and fed upness. So nearly 7 months ago, we were walking on the street, and our 22-year-old neighbour stopped us and said, "Nay, John, can I come to church with you?" And we were a bit shocked. This doesn't happen very often, if at all. And so we said, "Why on earth do you want to come to church with us?" And he said, "Well, I've been really struggling with depression and lowness recently." He's 22, he's training to be a policeman, and every senior police officer that he's met has been a Christian. And they've been really outspoken that they can only do this job, they can only deal with the darkness of their job because they know the light that Christ offers. I've listened to them for months and months, and I want to find out if what they're saying is true. So can I come to church with you? So we said, of course you can come to church. So he Zoomed with us, he came in person when it was allowed, he Zoomed again. And then about 4 weeks ago, it was raining heavily, and John and him have been doing Seeker Bible studies, so looking at the Gospels every week together, over the fence, on Zoom, in person, everything you can do. A few weeks ago, they were on their weekly walk, talking, reading the Bible, walking in the rain. And he said, "I had a dream. Jesus spoke to me in a dream." And John said, what did he say? And he said, "Well, I was so scared, I just started praying, and I realized that God was true. All that I've read in the Bible, all that I've heard from church, what the police officer said is true. It can bring light and life into my darkness. And so John, my husband, said to him, do you want to become a Christian? And he did. In lockdown, a 22-year-old lad on a bench in the rain in Southampton. And I just want to encourage you, however you feel, that's okay. God doesn't expect us to be perfect or having these amazing, incredible plans. We haven't yet planned our trail. I'm not launching it yet because all the mums are so exhausted. I'm going to get ideas going on March the 9th, because I know March the 8th, everyone will be having strong coffee or wine at 10 o'clock in the morning. To be sons and daughters, as John has said, but also have hope that God can use us in our weakness, because he always does. That's what he does. And so I just want to read you a few words from Sally Lloyd-Jones that I've been really struck by. She says this at the end of the Easter story in the Jesus Storybook Bible: was God really making everything sad come untrue? Was he making even death come untrue? And as you read those words, you realize that this Easter message is a message of hope. And in a world that is more aware of death and suffering than ever before, this is a message that needs to be heard. You see, Jesus offers forgiveness for the past, new life for the present, and hope for the future. And that is including messy people like you and me. She carries on and says this: as we read this great rescue story together, God wants us to remember, however we're feeling today, wherever we are today, whatever is happening in our lives today, however it looks, even if it looks like there is no hope at all, spring is coming. It may look like nothing is happening. It may even look like everything has died, but spring is coming. Easter is coming. Jesus dies, but he comes alive again. And one day, death and sickness and tears, they will be no more, because God is making the story end happily for his world and for his children. So this is the Easter message. We firstly want to love and accept and embrace ourselves, but we want to share with our friends as well. And just to finish, never before has a friend sent me an evangelistic parcel until yesterday. My friend sent me a parcel with seeds, with a poem about spring, and a message from Captain Tom saying, keep going, Nay, spring is coming. And I love this friend dearly, but I did just think, what on earth are you going on about? Like, I know the one that's died and risen again, and I have genuine hope that there is more to life than the death that we're seeing. And so I would just encourage you, in your exhaustion, offer that hope, because it's all we can do right now. Don't give up because you're tired, but don't be a slave either. Do it as a son and as a daughter. So I hope that's been encouraging, and thanks for all your comments. Back to you, Ed.
Thank you, Nay. Well, why don't I pray before we do anything else? Father, we're tired, and we find it hard, and we wish most things were different. We thank you, Father, that this is true. He has risen. We thank you, Father, that surrendering to your good purposes requires no energy. We thank you that resting in your power to do miracles requires no to-do list from us. Thank you, Father, that your Son will be glorified this Easter, even if we do nothing as a result of this time together. We thank you, Father, above all else, that we are your sons and daughters. And we thank you that you are at work. And we pray, Father, that we would just trust you and understand what you ask of us as your children. Thank you, Father. Amen.